Welcome to BioIT World's Trends from the Trenches podcast, your insider's look at the science, technology, and executive trends driving the life sciences. I'm Allison Proffitt, editor of BioIT World. This episode is hosted by Stan Gloss, founder of BioTeam, a life sciences IT consulting company at the intersection of science, data, and technology. Today, Stan chats with Jim Bilotta, Chief Information Officer at Alnylam, about how the company has moved on from digitization to developing actual digital capability. Let's listen in.
Maybe you could tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Alnylam.
Sure. So I started out many years ago, believe it or not, as in a microbiology lab plating specimens for a research study on antibiotic resistance. Fell in love with the whole concept of the science of creating these medications and trying to keep in front of nature, which is just really was amazing. Was a IT undergraduate at Southern Connecticut State University, and when I graduated, tried to stay in the science arena. Worked for lots of different places through a consulting company over the years, and sort of found my home in kind of rare disease, orphan disease area, because the impact to patients and patients' families was just unbelievable. And we had my father died of an orphan disease, and just having gone through it, it seemed like what better way to spend your career, right, than to fight for these sort of situations in patients. And so spent a number of years doing SAP and a lot of consulting work, and then went to after some time, went to Alexion, where I led their IT department for about 10 years or more, as we commercialized products around the world. Solaris was our big drug. Left there, went to Synergiva to do the same thing, another rare disease company, and then over to Alnylam. And throughout the process, really just learning more, and just as science developed, and certainly at Alnylam with siRNAs and a Nobel-winning science, just really I think is the crown jewel of for me, at least in my career, of just incredible companies.
So maybe you can tell me about your current role at Alnylam.
So at Alnylam, I'm the Chief Information Officer, head of IT. I also run our business capability building group, which is sort of an EPMO for the company. And what we do is across the organization, we lead, information technology, delivering technology solutions, helping to build out our capabilities around the world as we try and get, great products to patients who need them. And, we've expanded significantly over the years as a company and even as a team. I would say that my role and my team's role is really everywhere from infrastructure across the business and every EA, both guiding, but also implementing business solutions to help help to reduce the amount of time that it takes to get these products out to the patients who need them.
That's terrific. So a lot of discussion has been happening in many companies around the term digital transformation. I'm curious to get your impression of what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to Alnylam? Because it seems like there's a different meaning depending on each company you go to.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I think for us, the way we look at it is we look at digital transformation as a new way of doing business, right? We see it as, creating information and creating new opportunities to do what we do differently, maybe than what we've done in the past. And there's a difference for us in digitization versus digital transformation, right? We have a lot of digitization efforts where we're, optimizing processes or integrating with partners and that sort of thing, or taking old processes that were manual and turning them into digital processes. And that's fun and that's great. And it's important. But our digital transformation really was accelerated, I think, with some of the sort of remote workforce and some of the experience that we all just went through or are still going through with COVID-19. But for us, it's finding new ways to, make clinical trials, not only, generate, great and, important data, but also making it, maybe easier for patients, right, in a trial to participate. For example, using digital to help us do target identification for drug discovery. Or in really specifically helping us build our siRNAs, right? So that we can move through things through the pipeline quicker and get to a drug candidate, right? And increase that possibility of successful results, right? And in addition to that, even on the other end of that, right, through education and, physician engagement, really digitizing some of those processes, which, maybe up until very recently weren't really, working too well as an industry. But, I think we see it at digital transformation as, again, new opportunities, new business, new ways of operating as a company.
Where would you like to see Alnylam be in 3 to 5 years from a digital capability standpoint?
So for us, I think having the, digital backbone, if you will, in place where we actually are, maximizing our ability to be digital, right? So that we can, use our data to the best that we can. So I think within 3 to 5 years, having us really have that internal capability where we're maximizing everything that we do, but also having new lines of business with our partners and getting drugs to market, right? Both in terms of the way that we distribute and conduct our clinical trials, but also the way that we're developing, using more RWE, more, digital collection of data through IoT or other methods, and then making that data, work for us in developing those drugs and getting them to market quicker. Where I'd like to see us in 3 years, right, would be for us to have these lines of business established and functioning and learning and growing. So I think it's a never-ending journey, to be honest with you, Stan. And I hope it's a never-ending journey, to be honest with you, because I think once we stop learning and getting better, then we're sort of we're probably gone. I think as a science-driven company, especially a company that is focused on really, siRNAs and essentially, it's a non-traditional way of for medicine. I think for us, we focus on what's possible. My goal for us in our digital transformation is it represents who we are as a company, and that we've really taken on new opportunities to change and the lives of the people that we serve.
Help me understand, where are you today?
From my perspective, where we are along our journey is we're plotting our, in 3 to 5 years, as we talked about, we want to be well on our way to that North Star, right? Mm-hmm. I think, where we're focused right now is determining the tactics, right? What are the best tactics to get there, and focusing in on a few key things rather than everything at once, right? So, how do we, and we're running in parallel, right? We're thinking about the digital backbone, if you will, in terms of how do we build this interoperability that will drive us and give us, because we don't really know what those are. We're anticipating that there's unknown unknowns, right? And that there are going to be new opportunities for us, and we want to be able to take advantage of those. So not only are we focusing on, sort of the outward facing digital transformation capabilities, such as, we talked about earlier with IoT and other capabilities of, that can transform really the clinical experience, but also we're focused on how do we then make sure that that data is both accessible, secure, findable and usable. I think we focus a lot on, collecting data. As an industry, I think, managing that data, really stewarding that data is critical. So we are very focused right now on that piece. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to do that. How do we work as a company? There's a certain collective intelligence about this, right? There's machine learning that works, and then there's the scientific. From my perspective, it's the value that we have is we have outstanding scientists on that one, right? And we want to be able to use them with machine learning and AI to really create that collective intelligence that's going to set us apart, right? And allow us to do all the wonderful things that we want to do as a company. We have to have a focus on mastering our data, stewarding our data, so that the data is it's findable, accessible, it's readable. We have confidence in that data. I think what we're focused on now is really just making sure that we're able to manage this data so that it doesn't become siloed, at least in a way that doesn't, allow it to, be maximized for its value and what it can tell us, right? Because we want our data, when it comes together, to tell us new things. We want to create information out of that data, right? And not necessarily just interpret it.
I've been reading a lot about the difference between artificial intelligence, the term, and augmented intelligence.
Yeah.
I think that it's a subtle difference that people just don't understand.
I completely agree. I think that, I think it's necessary, and I think it's reality. I think if you're striving for just that machine, piece of it, it's unlikely that you'll achieve the success that you can with, obviously just great minds like we have at Alnylam. I also think, I would actually extend that a little further. I think to have a true digital transformation, it takes great minds from across the company in all different areas, right? We have incredible thinkers who are always, who have great expertise in their particular area. And I find that when we bring them together, right, on these teams to actually build these digital strategies, the innovation, the creative, the creative minds in the room just really accelerate the things that we're going to do. And it gives us new opportunities to think about, all right, how do we align this stuff? How do we line this stuff up in a way that makes sense, where we can execute it against it in a fair and reasonable way that's, going to get us to where we want to be. And it also helps us reflect back on the digital backbone that we're building, which is that interoperability piece that allows us to take advantage of ubiquitous data and unlimited storage and all these other capabilities that are out there, and not hinder ourselves in the future, because it's a different time. I mean, when we think about infrastructure, infrastructure today is really just, we're a data highway. Right. And you just want to make sure it's a secure and an accommodating environment for all these digital strategies.
The investment of time in data right now, I think, is the right place to put the investment, because that data is your new company asset. Years ago in the pharmaceutical space, it was your compound library and how much screening you can do and all of that. But we're moving to a different way of doing science, and your data is your strategic asset.
It is. And, with lab notebooks now, with electronic lab notebooks and, all of the capabilities that we have today, it's, and I think we're in an interesting kind of phase in industry in general, right? Where, we're doing all of this, and probably the reason it's taking 80% of the time, I think, is largely because we're doing it for the first time in many cases, right? As an industry where, everyone has electronic lab notebooks now and has had them for some time, and we all have, other tools, and we have an opportunity to just, really focus in on standardizing data. But at the same time, this is where machine learning really helps out, right? This is where, as an industry, taking advantage of machine learning tools that can tag your data for you, and help along the way with that collective intelligence piece, right? Because you want to make sure, that, where these tools get into situations where they're not sure, you want to make sure human eyes can train them, right? To make these. But I think as an industry, that's going to advance us quite a bit, and we see those tools now, right? So I mean, I think this is definitely going to help us kind of reduce that 80% down to a more realistic number, which can allow us to focus on the more front end related digital transformation activities.
The other change that I'm seeing, which is really interesting, and having a number of conversations around the shift from being project focused to being product focused. So I don't know if have you seen any of that coming to your level? Is that a conversation that you guys have?
As we're building these digital capabilities as a company, it also, looking at it as a product stand, also gives you the ability to give people in the organization an opportunity to help control that product, right? So they're the product managers essentially, right? So they're the team lead for that product, and that product can be anywhere in the chain, right?
Anywhere.
So yeah, and so we do see it that way. As a matter of fact, as we're building out these digital capabilities in the digital backbone, and even as we're doing our planning for 2022, we're trying to identify within the organization who these product managers can be for each of these, give them opportunities, right? Because I think it's not only an opportunity to lead and develop people within the organization, but it's an opportunity to give people the creative freedom to think about it in a more digital way, right? And I do agree with you in the product approach really is sort of necessary to that digital transformation strategy because you want to create that tool belt, if you will, of capabilities within your organization. And you want to make it so that your tool, you have the ability to interchange your tools, right? Without necessarily affecting anything further down the line. So we do think of it that way. I don't know that we speak of it that way, other than those of us, who maybe have a bigger background in this stuff. Right. But we do talk about it in terms of product managers and, in the digital capabilities that we have as a company. I think this is as we get closer to our ultimate North Star, and we're building out the 3 to 5 year implementation of our tactics, and then beyond 5 years, obviously, because I don't think we'll be anywhere near where we need to be or want to be by in 3 years. I think it's a never ending journey, because I guarantee you the goalposts will be moved, every 3 years, at least I hope. But we do think of it that way. And I admire the fact that you spoke of it that way, because that is really what it is.
I interviewed Mike Montello from GSK, and he wrote an article on this project to product transformation. So I'm going to send you the link to that article.
Yeah, sure.
I think you'll find it really interesting around that. So I
actually I've read a lot of Gene Ross's approach to that as well from MIT, and project to product, and it is definitely the right strategy, I think. And I'd love to see sort of what he's written about it, actually. But yeah, it is considered a core component to a digital transformation strategy.
I think because this is not a technology problem that we're facing today. Because all the technologies that we need to implement a full digital transformation is here. It's here. You can buy it today.
We agree. Yeah.
What's not here is the processes in place, the standards, the governance, all of that in the full control of our data, and really making our data a strategic asset of the organization. So that's where all the time really needs to be spent. And I see people, playing around with doing certain AI experiments, and it's okay to be experimenting with AI and machine learning. But if your data is still not well managed, it's a better, you have to do those things in parallel.
The interesting point is, I think that we all, as an industry, I think we've crested the top of the hill now where everybody gets that, right? Yeah. And so everybody's working on it. So it's wonderful, right? And we talked earlier about how, getting all different folks in a room, even within an organization, to innovate really gives you new opportunities that you're not going to get with just an IT guy or just a researcher or just a marketing guy, right? You're going to get a lot of different points of view on and ideas on how to build that product, right? And I think what you're describing is essentially like with many things that we do in information security and other areas, it really does help drive and innovate as an industry, and even standardize. And somehow in some cases the output could be standardization in terms of the way we approach things. So I think it's a great idea. I do think it is, to your point, a fundamental, piece of really creating any real value out of AI. And for machine learning, again, I see machine learning in two ways, actually. I would depart a little bit from you and say machine learning can help us get there. actually, right, with image processing and a lot of the other capabilities that we use. But in order for machine learning to get better, the better the quality of the data, the more complete the data. Completeness is another thing, right? The better the AI, the information creation, right, telling us things that we don't know is going to be. So I agree with you. I think it's a wonderful idea to get folks together on this.
What are the biggest challenges that you're facing in your digital transformation today, and what are the hardest things to overcome?
So one of them we just talked about at length, I think, and so I think that's where we're trying to bring all of that together. And that's a sizable undertaking, right? I mean, it's you have a lot of historical data, and you have a lot of new data you're generating, and you have a lot of different scientists in different labs, and you want to get everybody aligned. So that's one of the challenges. Although everybody's up for the challenge, there's nobody that's saying I don't want to be part of this challenge. Everyone gets the benefit of this, right? The other challenge I think we have is resources and time. You have to be very careful in digital transformation. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew. And you mentioned earlier about the importance of centralization. I think, having a centralized strategy and governance and approach to funding these projects and moving this stuff forward is critical to their success. Right from the top, to your point earlier about the boardroom, and they are very involved as we would expect them to be. And I think, from my perspective, it's picking off the most important things and, making sure you establish the value of what you're looking for out of it, and making sure the things that you're doing are adding value to the people that you serve, right? Both, within the company and externally. We want to do the things that are going to be most impactful, change the way, give us new opportunities, things that we can't currently do that we'll be able to do, for example, with digital transformation. And so picking off those projects, funding them, and focusing our resources and time on those things that matter the most in advancing our strategy. That's also a challenge because we want to do everything, but we all recognize that that wouldn't be best in the best interest of the company or anybody. So I think that's part of the challenge, is holding ourselves back and saying, okay, we're going to focus on X, Y, and Z this year, and getting really good at that. So that we can focus on these other three things, which are going to require X, Y, and Z to be really, really good before we get to them. So when you're in a very innovative environment with people that are very scientific in nature, everybody wants to, we just have great ideas, and harnessing that and focusing in on a few things is probably one of our a good problem to have, Stan. I don't complain about it. I love the fact that we have such a creative company. But yeah, so time, resources, and then just I think the mastery and of the just volumes of data that we have.
I think trying to do too much, one, makes it overwhelming to people, and two, it brings in the naysayers because, that's too big of a goal. That's too big of a goal.
And they tend to be disconnected, Stan. If we do them all at once, they tend to be disconnected because people, it's just not the way. By putting it together, and to whether we call it product oriented or just having a stepwise approach to what we're trying to accomplish, we can actually ensure everything's integrated, right? So that all our ideas are integrated, our people are integrated, we have that cohesive backbone about what it is that all of these products, when combined, are actually producing. And then I'll just top that off by saying, for us, we also anticipate that if we were to do everything at once, that we would, a year from now, there'd be some opportunity that would throw the whole thing off. And by doing this stepwise and thematically, if you will, towards a single goal, we allow ourselves to take advantage of these new things when they arise. If we're pulling one component out or one product out of the value chain, right, we can substitute that new thing in without it necessarily becoming its own disruptor.
So last question, if you could go back in time to your career, say 10 years ago, and give yourself advice based on what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
The way I see IT, we pave the way, in terms of readiness for our organization to be able to move in any particular direction. And I think especially with, again, how quickly digital moved with COVID, I think having that sort of, 10 years ago premonition where I would have organized things and focused on, the process aspects of even more than the technology would be good advice for anyone moving into this industry. I think you never know what 10 years is going to bring, and you have to be ready to be wrong, if that makes sense, and you also have to be ready for those unknown unknowns, and that means being agile, right? Everything you do needs to be agile, and the quicker you can move, the better as a company you can be.
Well, it's funny. I think you just gave yourself your advice for the present, moving towards an AI-enabled company.
I hope so.
That's terrific.
This episode was produced by Pete Glowacki and myself, Allison Profit, with the BioIT World media team from www.bioitworld.com. It was hosted by Stan Gloss, founder of BioTeam, a life science IT consulting firm at the intersection of science, data, and technology. BioTeam builds innovative scientific data ecosystems that close the gap between what scientists want to do with their data and what they can do. Learn more at www.bioteam.net.